time of year. So from a resourcing perspective, we won't have any shortages of resources to come and assist with the LTP audits. Again, I think we are focusing on to start LTP audits probably late November, early December, right through to June next year. So that is not impacting on that time frame.
I guess a question to start to Mr. Millwood and Mr. Palmer is, noting what we've been advised, have you any concerns about our ability to meet our indicated LTP deadlines?
No, I don't have any concerns at this stage. We haven't amended the audit plan. It's still expected to take place, the majority of it in September, so we're on track to adopt the annual report, in October. And the LTP, our PCG is a little bit behind at the moment, but it'll soon catch up. As Derek has mentioned, there's quite a lot of documentation that they'd want to view over that period of time. One's the asset management plans, and currently we're doing that concurrently with the LA strategy, but that's a pretty normal case is what happens, and we usually have an agreement with the audit that if we identify anything significant that comes out of those renewals of the reviews of the asset management plans, we signal those. So no, I don't have any concerns over the timeframes. We're pretty much on track. We've completed most of our revaluation of our assets. Some of the most significant ones are the other three waters. They've gone up about 24%, which has a flow-on effect for rating. Roading, we always do each year because we're a growth council, and we have an impact on the road usage, so we always have a significant movement there, which we account for annually. Our most significant movement has probably been within our interest rate swaps, the hedging that we do for our debt, where it's moved about $5 million. So yeah, we're pretty much on target. We've still got some investment property to get confirmations on, but very much on timetable.
Yeah, and yeah, I'd concur with what Jeff has said. My assessment is that the year-end valuation adjustments as a result of COVID are relatively immaterial to our business based on what we know today in terms of either collectability of values or underlying asset value changes in terms of commercial property or the like. I think those risks are relatively low for us. And timetabling, understand what you're saying, that your priorities are going to be driven by the Auditor General's priorities, so if that sees resource directed away from our audit somewhere else, then that may impact your ability to issue an opinion in the timeframes that we'd hoped for. If that, we obviously want to keep in touch with you about that. If that were the case, I think accountability is important, and we would probably consider, if that was going to be a significant delay, whether we actually adopted an unaudited set of accounts at some point and made those publicly available, and came back and received an audit opinion at a later time if there was going to be a significant delay. But we can talk to you about that. The balance of the audit or the preparation of the financial statements, to my knowledge, is tracking as we would expect. So I think we will be able to meet our commitments, but it'll be important to stay closely connected to you in terms of your resources and availability as well.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett? Just following on, and thank you for advising of the 1.5% rate increase, because that was something I was going to query. Obviously this council's received some excellent audits going through, and we seem to have had a good track record in audits. Is there not in the future a consideration of doing a lighter audit for councils for good behaviour, for those who've actually had some good credit and have actually shown to be managing their finances responsibly, to perhaps give them a little bit, has the Auditor General actually considered anything like that?
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. I think from our perspective, we would love a lighter audit. Yeah, unfortunately, our audits are driven by also standards that is legislated. So the legislation says we must audit in terms of the auditing standards, and that auditing standards prescribes what we need to do. So there's a lot of almost, I wouldn't want to say tick box, but you have to tick all the boxes, you know. So I have done this, and I think with a lot of corporate collapses in recent times, it just made that a lot more onerous. You know, so I think the expectations on the auditor has increased significantly. Even from the recent COVID pandemic experience, a lot of, if you speak to a lot of auditors, the expectation increased work is around 20 to 30% just as a result of that, which is very unfortunate because of all the assumptions and judgments that now needs to be considered and scrutinized to the nth degree. And that's unfortunately the reality and the environment in which we operate. But I mean, I take the point that yes, I think the council has been doing quite well in recent times. We are trying to focus on the key risk areas and not waste time on areas that you are doing well in, and ensuring that we can still add value through the process.
Subsequent question then to Mr. Palmer. Has that ever been considered in your experience of audit to actually, my rule is if there's a law that's not working, you try and fix the law. So has there ever been representations to the Auditor General about the in-depth nature of audits, or what audits could be considered for local authorities?
It has been a topic that's been raised over probably decades, to be fair. And the scope of the several comments. Firstly, in terms of there's a legislative obligation to undertake an audit, so that while the Auditor General might have a view about the merits of the audit at the moment, that sits within the Local Government Act about particularly LTPs and the nature and extent of audit and the audit considerations. As soon as there is a requirement to undertake an audit, auditors have an obligation to meet the relevant auditing standards. So that automatically drives auditors to discharge any audit in accordance with those standards. And the Institute and other bodies are now, including the OAG, put quite a lot of pressure on, or focus on auditors meeting audit standards, which in my view the risk-based approach of audit is being lost in the mix, and genuine risk as opposed to compliance. So a lot of the auditors now has in my view, a high degree of compliance associated with it, and I'm not blaming our auditors for that. That is just needing to meet some audit standards which have been driven out of corporate failure across the world, and audits previously not having drawn those to attention. In my view, the approach to the audit of public sector audit versus audits in the commercial sector, and particularly where going concern and issues of viability are very much to the forefront of audits, and those who rely on those statements should be getting a thorough consideration of those key risks. I think some of our audit in public sector is not as well aligned as it could be, and that I know the Auditor General's aware of those issues, but being aware of it and being able to change that is not necessarily the same thing. So the Auditor General's not immune to that risk either, and there was a situation some years ago related to Kaipara where the Auditor General was actually sued in respect of whether that audit undertaken was of sufficient quality. So that's put the Auditor General on notice about the quality of their audit, particularly around LTPs and valuation risks. So yes, I think there should be a reframing of the way public sector audit is undertaken so that it adds more value, focuses on the genuine major risks and has less of a compliance focus. So that they are my observations, but I'm not certainly laying any of that at Audit New Zealand's door. While they might be able to influence that, they as soon as undertaking an engagement are obliged to follow audit standards, and if they don't, then Derek and his team expose themselves to a reasonable amount of risk to their credibility and professional standing. So that's, I'm not suggesting that they deviate away from that, but it's more of a systemic issue that I think a mature conversation should be had, but when Derek might be able to comment on that, but I don't blame Audit New Zealand for the work that they need to do to meet their audit standards.
Thank you. Yeah. Any further questions, councillors? Yeah. So the Mayor moves. We've got recommendations that we received the report, agree to the engagement, arrangements and audit plan for the year ending June 30th, 2020, and we note the fee is within our budget forecast. So the Mayor's moved and Councillor Barnett has seconded. Do we have any discussion?
Please. Look, thank you both, Derek and Trevor, for being with us today. And as you note from my questions, the concern that's coming from within our sector around timeframes, I accept that there are resourcing issues that have been raised and around timeframes, but I would have thought that given that we are in a captive environment, and we are, as my understanding, we don't have a choice where we're audited, that I think that it's been well known that our long-term plans are coming around, and I think that the Auditor General should make sure that we are prioritised as a sector in that respect. I realise there's other work going on too, but it's a very important measure to our community that our accounts are properly audited, and that's why we spend the resource that we do with Audit New Zealand. It's no reflection on yourselves, but I think it's a matter that the Auditor General does need to carefully reflect on. There was a fair degree, and Neville, Councillor Atkinson will attest, there was a fair degree of concern raised at our sector last week about this very topic, and that's why a number of deputations went off to see the Auditor General in that space. I personally want to see us meet our deadlines. I don't want to see us go out with non-audited accounts to our public, because it's a very important measure. But in saying that, I agree to the us continuing our arrangements. We've got a very good relationship with Audit New Zealand, but I think it's important for us to raise our concerns with you and for those to be reflected back to the Auditor General. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett? Or
Yes, similarly, I see huge value in having the audit. It certainly highlights our processes and it helps us to tidy up areas that may just pose a little bit of risk to the council and to the community. So we need to do this. It certainly adds value and credibility. And my questioning in no respect reflected on Audit New Zealand at all. But I do believe that we have moved away from actually doing an audit that adds value and have more of a tick box audit at times, which if a public sector entity has been performing well, I believe should perhaps mean that you don't have to do quite as much as you would do for an entity that maybe is having a bit of trouble. So I do believe there is another conversation to be had in that space, where a risk-based approach would actually make much more sense for a public sector entity. Private sector is quite different, and to apply the same rules to both doesn't seem to make sense to me. We want our audit to be transparent and fair and focus on the areas of high risk so that we know that we're steering the ship in the right direction. And I think that's something that perhaps the mayors could take up also with the Auditor General going forward. So that was the line of my questioning. But I thank you very much. I note that we are in budget, and I appreciate very much that you have kept your costs to the 1.5%, which actually coincidentally matches our rate rise for the financial year.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillors? Mayor? All right, we'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare it carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've just got maybe one or two comments around the LTP, if
Yep.
I may. Yes, so
Go ahead.
as the Mayor indicated, that there was a session held last week, so there is still a lot happening in the background around LTPs. So that process is happening, and our auditors are being acquainted with all the expectations around what is quite the themes for this LTP round, and I think that would have been shared with management and those that attended those sessions. But maybe again for those that weren't at the session, I think they're phrasing it the 4 or 5 C's, which is the key critical areas that you need to be focused on, is around COVID-19. Again, the assumptions that to what extent does this impact your longer term view. Around climate change is another area that is gaining a lot of prominence, because again we saw from previous LTPs that although recognised that it is an issue, maybe didn't get quite the voice that it needed to and reflected adequately in the LTPs, and to see to what extent your assets are susceptible to changes in climate. How can it actually weather the storm, and what are the assumptions around climate change that impacts on your assets. The other theme that's coming through is around your capital projects, because again from past experience and from looking at councils across the board, we saw that only up to a maximum of 80% of capital projects or funding of capital projects are being spent. So again, it puts into question the reasonableness of capital projects and that expected spending, which then puts the whole LTP and your long-term processes into question. So that's another key focus area, to make sure that your capital project estimates and expenditure budgets are robust, and that you are able to deliver on those capital projects. And the other C is around just your consultation documents. Again, to make sure that the consultation documents isn't a mini LTP, that it's there to consult with the community. So that is again something that we will be looking at. There's a lot of bulletins and information that will be made available on our website, ours and the Office of the Auditor General's, throughout the next couple of months, that can assist councils in ensuring that these critical areas are looked at properly and accounted for in your LTPs. So again, I think there's a lot happening in the background to again assist in allaying any fears around not meeting those legislative deadlines, in ensuring that you can meet and for us to meet those required timeframes when it comes to the LTP. So maybe just those parting remarks. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee.
Thank you. All right. Indeed. We'll see you again. Okay, we'll move on to item 5.2, which is a report on the Health and Safety Annual Plan and proposed 2021 plan. And welcome, Charlotte. If you want to take us through your report, Charlotte.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I'm here on behalf of Liz Ashton to present to you our annual achievements against agreed health and safety 2019-2020 annual plan, which was presented in the report. Of note is the carryover of 2 of the major projects due to essentially there was delay due to COVID-19 in one particular project, and then also with the support to the Rangiora Service Centre corporate accommodation project. Obviously there has been overall project changes, COVID-19, and then the recent engineering assessment changes, which has meant that that has also been carried over to this year's annual plan. Additionally, the report presents other activities and statistics relevant to our health and safety performance, in particular those leading and lagging indicators. Each of the data have been presented within either the health and safety report that is presented to council on a monthly basis, the due diligence report, or in individual reports that have come to the Audit and Risk Committee based on audits that have been undertaken during the year. So none of those data are new. However, I'm happy to discuss any of those further. And then has also presented the health and safety work plan or annual plan for 2020-2021. Other than that, I will take the, in addition, beyond what has been presented in the report of note, is that obviously during the COVID-19 response and lockdown, the health and safety team in particular provided a great deal of wellbeing response and during that time, and also have made significant input into that recent Rangiora Service Centre engineering assessment response, and this will lead into our assistance in the Rangiora Service Centre corporate accommodation project this coming year. Other than that, I will take the report as being read and happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Of Charlotte? Councillor Redmond?
Oops. Thanks for the report, Charlotte. On page 72, paragraph 1.7.2, I just wondered if you could elaborate on those matters which refer to bullying, fatigue, work-related stress and so on.
So,
Is that sort of a culture issue, or is that an issue?
oh, in
that we
the
have?
annual plan that is coming up, is that correct? Sorry.
That's a summary on
Oh, yes.
Diligent, page 72. I'm not sure what page it is on yours. Page 4 of 10,
Oh, yes, sorry.
1.7.2.
Yes. So, increase in focus on the risk areas regarding bullying, fatigue and work-related stress. That's correct. And we work quite closely with the HR team in particular, who take the lead on that in regards to bullying and harassment policies and processes that go on. And also in regard to fatigue management, so working closely with units to ensure that fatigue management processes are adhered to, so particularly in areas where there is emergency response in particular is where we find that fatigue management becomes quite a risk.
If I could just follow up, to
Yes,
what
sure.
degree is that an issue?
To what degree is it an issue?
Is it an issue here?
It came out as one of the key risks, so staff are indicating that as an issue rather than necessarily us auditing and finding it as an issue. So that's come through in the online Safe Plus assessment that we did earlier in the year. And so where people are being asked to indicate which risks they see as being the greatest risks within the organisation, those are the ones that are coming through as greatest risks.
Councillor Atkinson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I note in the bar graph on, I think it's your page 73, our page 73, is it? And then again in the statistics on 74, the near miss, that it's actually decreased reporting on near miss, which is the bit we want to grow.
Yes.
In any health and safety plan, we want the near misses reported as opposed to anything else. Why is that it's actually going down as opposed to up? Because I don't believe it's because people are avoiding more near misses.
No, that's correct. One of the things that we did do this year, we had actually captured incidents that are now called adverse interactions into the near misses previously. And so I can't remember exactly the date that we changed that, but we decided that particular incident type was of significance enough to have its own incident type. So that's pulled some of the near misses out in a sense. other than that, yes, we probably, I would like to see more near misses reported, definitely, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Ward?
I'd just like to go back to the fatigue issue. Could some of that be due to the tight working conditions that the staff are experiencing now? And also I note that we're actually working in 12 different buildings right now. That can't be very good for the well-being of the staff.
Look, I'm pleased you've highlighted issues of work fatigue, and my observation is that the organisation is actually quite tired, and there are probably levels of stress for some people that are higher than would be desired. We have annual leave balances which are far higher than we would like right across our organisation, and that's not a healthy indicator either. So certainly COVID has added, stress. It's created uncertainty, and I think we all face that uncertainty about what COVID has both impacted has had on us, and it's not only just workers, but it's also whānau of workers. So may not be our staff who are impacted, but a partner or a brother, sister, mother, daughter, son. They all add to our overall well-being. And if things aren't right at home for one reason, then that often gets transferred or manifests itself in the workplace as well. Certainly, the issue we've had with Rangiora Service Centre has been less than helpful in that space as well, and has compounded that. So I think you're right to acknowledge some of those issues we have. Being across multiple sites isn't desirable, and a number are working from home, which some like and some would prefer to be in the workplace, and we try and accommodate those needs as best concerns as best we can. But I think, and also just if we're in a cycle, this time of the year is the time of the year people, winter actually just gets everybody that extra inch down as well, which, when you actually start to come into spring, you actually see people start to have a little bit of a bounce in their step. But right this month is about as low as it gets in that space as well. So, yeah, there are a number of things which do present themselves in various ways for staff, and we have a very good employee assistance program through EAP support, and our human resources and health and safety team are really good at supporting and helping people through issues. So, and you are getting a number of those people coming to you with those concerns. So, you are right to identify it as an issue for us.
And further to that, I think one of the things that has happened, it has been an extremely stressful time. A lot of people have worked very hard over the past 6 months, in particular over the COVID-19 lockdown and responses to various things that have happened over the year that have been unforeseen. I think that probably also we know that we need to, in a sense, do more with less, or do more with the same amount of resources that we have. So it is something that needs to sit at the front of our minds in terms of ensuring that staff fatigue levels are managed appropriately. My sense is that fatigue is something that precedes significant harm. So where you have somebody who is fatigued, who is driving or operating machinery or doing anything of any with any great risk level, which we have some staff a lot of our staff in our organisation who are field workers, or who are driving heavy machinery, or who are driving vehicles. It is something that needs to be front of mind, in particular as a precursor to serious harm.
Councillor Barnett?
Just a question then. Mental wellbeing worries me the most, I think, at this stage, because it's often the invisible problem. Is there anything else we could initiate as a council to improve staff morale? Some sort of activities, or rather than having to make people go and talk about their problems, but often distraction can be a wonderful thing, something to look forward to. Is there something being considered about to improve staff morale?
I'm quite proud of the work that we do around in the wellbeing space in terms of trying to ensure that people are connected with each other and have the events and occasions that they may need to have in order to kind of lift their morale and wellbeing. We do have a strategy which is based around the 5 ways to wellbeing, and essentially, so connecting is obviously one of those really important things. Ensuring that we're making that people get physical and mental health support. Things like the long-standing MAD committee and the social club are incredibly important to our wellbeing strategy. Beyond that, yes, there's always more we could be doing, but I think that from an organisational perspective, things like, as Jim mentioned, our EAP, so workplace support, we've also got a great peer support program which allows people to actually go and talk to another staff member who is potentially more at their level or who they have a connection with. We have a number of staff who are kind of almost, I suppose in a sense, front line, as Jim mentioned, was, you know, the health and safety team and the HR team do take a lot of that I suppose those first queries. Other than that, yeah, there is always more that we could potentially do, but I am very proud of the work that is done by the MAD committee, by the social club and by the wellbeing committee in this space.
And I would concur with Charlotte. I think we have quite a range of opportunities, and actually it's often a sign of, you know, well-being where we're actually struggling sometimes for volunteers for our social club and MAD committee, and we put on events and sometimes they're not that well attended, and actually that's often a signal that people are actually, you know, you actually get to Friday night and all you want to do is go home, not socialise with your colleagues or do extracurricular type activities. So, but trying to keep the mood of the organisation light, and you know, there is plenty to be thankful about. We're not very, you know, being appreciative is one of the important things in this time of actually saying thank you to people, and probably as an organisation we've got an A-type personality, which is, well, we forget about that, we've just done that and completed that, what's the next task? We don't celebrate particularly well as an organisation. You know, we've just had an accomplishment this week announced, but, you know, our stoic response to that is, yep, that's good, now what do we need to focus on to improve? And so that's, you know, and I accept responsibility because I lead a lot of that behaviour as well. So, you know, we probably need to be kinder to ourselves, and there are a couple of externalities on the horizon that you're all familiar with in terms of either sector reform and LTP pressures and the like, which are going to mean that we there is no immediate let up in what's coming at us. So we do need to be thinking about what we can reasonably expect our organisation to deliver and still hold the plastic thing around all the cans all the time. So, yeah.
Thank you.
To that, Mr. Palmer, so what are we doing to celebrate the AA rating across the organisation? Is that being considered?
At the nothing, apart from the warm feeling we have inside, we've done nothing to celebrate that, and that's a reasonable question to us. I'll reflect on that.
Any more questions, councillors?
Just before you move to debate, can I just acknowledge Charlotte? This is Charlotte's last time with this committee. She's tendered her resignation from the council, and 31st of July is her last day. We're extremely appreciative and proud of the efforts that Charlotte has delivered particularly in the health and safety, but more recently in quality and risk management had a huge workload and one of those A-type personalities as well, with a long list, and boy, she's ploughed through it and made a significant contribution to how well we are regarded in terms of our health and safety practices, and you've made a big difference to our organisation. And I'd just like the committee, if as part of its motion, if it thought appropriate, to include thanks for Charlotte's contribution, which has been huge.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Undoubtedly, the Deputy Mayor is very keen to add that to...
It's actually going to be part of my opening.
Oh, right.
But however...
Yeah, so Councillor Atkinson moves and the Mayor seconds. Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just actually ditto what Jim has said, because he said it very eloquently, and Charlotte has moved our organisation into a space that is fantastic going forward, and it's a big step, and it's always critical. You know, you've got people sitting around the table who are of my generation, who are of the harden up and get on with it category, and that's intergenerational to change. It doesn't happen overnight, and a lot of us don't like what happens in the health and safety space, but it's something that we have to deal with and change our mind. I'm one of the people who were actually very appreciative of calls from our staff while we were locked in lockdown and COVID, to actually ask how we as elected members were getting on. I don't think I've ever had that asked of me of anybody, or actually, no, not true. Graham Ford once, during the earthquake, dropped off some muffins and said, you elected members get forgotten about and what you do. So second time it's actually happened that someone's actually rung to see how you're going. What it did for me was actually spark me to ring some of my constituents, particularly in the business world, and say to them, how are you going? You know, what's happening? Knowing that they had people that they had to deal with in exactly that space you've just been talking about, which is that fatigue and pressure and stress space of knowing whether they did or didn't have jobs when they came back, and hopefully that made a bit of a difference to them moving out and talking to their people as well. So I think Charlotte's made a fantastic difference to this organisation in that space. Health and safety, I think that it is, Charlotte explained that hopefully those two figures match up between the near misses and the, I can't remember the heading you called it, hopefully they do match up into more near misses, because I mean the more near misses we have reported, the less accidents we have, and the more reactive we can be about it. So it's actually a space on here in the graph that I look at every time, because that is the big one that really does make a difference to people not getting injured at work and what you do about it. So I look forward to that going through. Celebrations, I was also going to bring that up. We were, both the Mayor and I were congratulated by many people actually, and Thursday and Friday, asked by the CEO himself of Local Government New Zealand what it is you're going to do about it, or you're just going to sit on it. And we did reflect on the fact that Jim is very conservative when it comes to celebrations, because he doesn't like getting knocked off the top perch. But I feel that it is somewhere we need to go, and again with our staff, every time we achieve something, you know, this is a whole organisation win, this mark, and I think that it needs to be celebrated, and they are the things that will bring our organisation into a much better place, and actually show our public that we don't just sit here and talk and make up rules and do things. We actually do them for the good of the people in which we represent.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thoroughly endorse those comments, and especially acknowledging you, Charlotte, for I think a fantastic contribution you've made to this organisation certainly since I've observed the improvements we've made in this space. You're very clear, and your processes are excellent, and look, we're really sad to see you go, but celebrate what you've done here, and also wish you well on your journey to your next part of your career. So you go with, goes obviously with our best wishes, but tinged with sadness, because we never like to lose somebody that's made the contribution that you have here, and it will be lasting through the processes and things that you've put in place. So go well. Just in general, I'd look and endorse the comments been made. Councillor Atkinson and through the questions of Councillor Barnett here. I do look up around the building probably a lot more than other elected members, and I do observe a very good spirit that exists, and I think that the work that we do internally, and we can never rest on our laurels, but the surveys that are in place, there's plenty of opportunities in which for people to let the organisation know how they're going. That's not to say that we don't have pressures, because we do. Councillor Ward's right to observe the building. There was a fair amount of anxiety around the place about it. In fact, there's a lot of anxiety in the community who've asked me repeated questions, oh, you're out of your building and you're not in your space, and to explain to them that that's not actually how it is. But there are those things, the clear lines of communication and keeping people informed with what we know is important, and I commend the CE and our staff for the clear lines of communication that do exist. I think that was one of the things that marked through COVID, and it's one of the things that was regularly reflected back to me, how much people respected Jim for his leadership through that time, the regular communication, the funnies that existed, that came out most days. We missed those actually, Jim. But they were, it was just a very real part of the communication. Like I really appreciated Liz reaching out to me to see how I was doing, which was really kind. She didn't need to do that, but it was very nice of her just to see how I was doing. So I think the dots were connected in many ways through that time. But we do need to be very mindful of the signs that are existing. Certainly there are a lot of people very stressed at the moment, and some of those we're starting to see. So as an organisation, we certainly need to be mindful of that. I'm very proud of our council for the AA. It's an amazing achievement to be re-accredited with that. We're one of 2 councils in the country to have achieved AA. Yes, we do need to celebrate that. I have it on my list to talk to Jim about it. I was going to discuss it yesterday, but we had a few other things to talk about. So we will do something for that. I would like to see us celebrate it in some way. How we'll do that, I'm not sure about at the moment, but have a discussion with Jim about that. But it should be acknowledged and celebrated. We've certainly put a press statement out around that, so our community will be aware of that. But to have that endorsement, to have that reflection from an external provider is fantastic. So just goes to the health and of our organisation. But here we're focused on the health and safety and the work that's there. So thoroughly endorse the report, and thank you for the work again, Charlotte, that you have done in this space.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Yes, thank you very much for an excellent report, Charlotte, and it will be very sad to see you go. I won't repeat the comments, but they're certainly echoed around the whole committee by the sound of it. Staff are our biggest asset, and so therefore they're also one of our biggest risks, and this committee has to deal with risk. When staff leave, it not only causes cost for us, it opens up risk, and we lose experience, we lose resourcing, and that's very, very difficult for the organisation, and it's the whole process that we have to go through. So I think it's really, really important that this committee is very aware that we do have adequate resourcing, that we are able to manage that risk, and that we are able to manage the look at succession. So I would appreciate perhaps a little bit more information in that space going forward from the audit and risk perspective. We saw with anxiety from the earthquake times that a lot of people react by shutting down, and they don't talk to anybody. So you can have all the beautiful programs available, which we do, but some people will never reach out, and that's difficult, because what do you do for those people? And often it is the contact with a co-worker, or the smile, or a shared morning tea that actually can make the difference. In another organisation I worked for, when someone went above and beyond, they just got a voucher for Subway, so they could go and get a free Subway. And it's amazing what a free coffee or a free Subway voucher can make someone feel very valued or appreciated. So there's not major cost in actually recognising and celebrating successes and effort from our staff. There is a huge cost when we lose staff, and so therefore I would encourage Mr. Palmer and the team to look at that very, very seriously going forward, because we need to keep our staff. They are absolutely brilliant. They've been working very, very hard, and we couldn't have got through many of these emergencies and disasters that we've faced in the last 10 years without them.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? I'd just like to add my congratulations to you, Charlotte, for an excellent job over your period here, and wish you really well for your future. So, right reply? I'm sorry, no. All right, we'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you very much. Good luck. Right, we move on to item 5.3, which is the quarterly status report on our cyber security, and welcome Owen to take us through that. Over to you.
So, good morning everyone. This is an update on the cybersecurity. This is an action we take with the Audit and Risk Committee on a quarterly basis. That's recommended as good practice, as following up from an external assessment that we undertook. So, this quarter, we are still on progress with our action plan. We have produced an action plan for cybersecurity that has been impacted by COVID and the lockdown and some of the uncertainty around the buildings. So we have had to reassess a lot of what we're doing to try to provide better ways of working for our staff. We have, however, managed to produce some improvements during this quarter, and we are still on progress to provide an improved score against our Association of Local Government Information Managers ALGIM framework that we score ourselves against. During this quarter, we have introduced for our staff, primarily, multi-factor authentication for the emails. And we have also, during the lockdown, provided cybersecurity training. So that's been rolled out as part of our Mimecast. They have rolled out 7 short videos and some corresponding quizzes for staff. And we have provided a report on the back of that to show that there has been a positive uptake of that, and the general consensus from staff has been that it is a positive thing and that they have enjoyed them. We are going to be extending that out to elected members as well. So that will be rolling it out, as you mentioned in the previous meeting to you guys, some improvements to the elected members, the ability to log on, and also we're looking at rolling out some cybersecurity training to elected members as well. That will hopefully provide coverage across most of the stakeholders of the council that log in and that provide security to our organisation. We're also currently using something called ProMap, which is the risk management tool that has been introduced to track cybersecurity risks. We have 10 tracking at the moment, and we have mitigations in place for all those, and we have plans in place to obviously kind of mitigate those through our cybersecurity plan and some of the ALGIM improvements that we're doing as well. So we have now moved our mail system to an external mail system with Microsoft. That's removed a little bit of risk that we had in place around the ability to log on using something called webmail. So that is now sitting in a data centre in Sydney at the moment. So we have improved that. And we have also been rolling out a tool that allows us to monitor our networks and monitor the activity of staff around cybersecurity. So we have produced some improvements over the last quarter, which have been reported back against that ALGIM framework. This is a self-monitored framework. We will be at the end of the year undertaking a review externally to see how we are progressing with ALGIM. But we are at the moment progressing well. We are providing improvements, and we are still tracking ahead of most other councils that are reporting against the ALGIM framework as well. We are reviewing some of our software at the moment as part of the improvements that we're making. So we're reviewing our antivirus security at the moment. We're looking at changes to the way that we monitor web access for staff. And we're also, one of the improvements that was key to our improvements was to look at redesigning our network. This has been delayed because of us being out of the office and because of some of the improvements to the office. But we have actually managed to sign some of our contracts around that, and we will be progressing ahead with that to redesign our network as well. We are aiming, as I mentioned, to carry on keeping improvements over the quarter, and again at the end of the year we will be having an external review and an external vulnerability review, as we do every year, to provide feedback against how we've progressed. At the moment, our biggest risk is still our users, so that's why we're providing our security awareness training around that. We will be extending that training to incorporate something called phishing training, where we will be sending out test emails to our staff to see how they're responding to some of our training, to see how they're responding to threats that we would normally see on the network. And we can then target training at groups of users that might not necessarily have picked up some of the message. So at the moment, like I said, we are progressing quite well, and we can hopefully continue to in the future. Thank you.
Any questions of Owen, councillors? Councillor Redmond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I note that you're currently tracking 10 risks in ProMat.
Yes.
And then in 7.3.1, you say we're tracking 9 cyber security risks.
Yep.
Are we talking about two different things?
No, so we classify things inside ProMap. We have the ability to mark items as cybersecurity or IT risk. So most of those 9 are marked as cybersecurity, but we have 10 in there. One of them is around the users' kind of policies, etc., that we do classify as cybersecurity as well, but it is a wider IT risk.
Right. What are the sort of security risks that you have listed?
We risk them as quite broad risks, so there will be items like users falling prey to phishing. The users might be falling prey to scams. We might have something in there around an intrusion upon our network or data loss. Within each one of those, then, we will be tracking individual items inside that. So, for example, if there is a scam, we might have something around something that we might call whaling, where higher level employees or kind of board members might be targeted. So we would be then looking at how we would mitigate risks against that. So inside each one of those risks, we might have a mitigation that would say that we would provide training, or we would provide mail filtering systems to mitigate some of those.
Any other questions, councillors? No?
If I may, Madam Chair, and really appreciate the work that Owen is leading on behalf of the organisation, and I think you may have seen some media coverage in the last few weeks about the number of significant hacks that have occurred across corporate systems in New Zealand and Australia, which have caused wide-scale disruption. I know I'm still waiting for an oven from Fisher and Paykel, who it took them weeks to recover from a hack that pretty much locked down their whole system. And whether that's either hack or ransomware that is occurring from international sources, those risks are really quite real and have major consequences. So the work we do, while as a user we can sometimes feel frustrated that why the heck do I need an IT administrator to update my next app or what have you, and multi-function authentication, which is, that's an email and it'll come and you'll get a message on your phone to say, yes, I approve access being granted, so verified through 2 methods that we are who we say we are. They are all good things there to protect us, and for the corporate business that we run, which is a complex business, if we were without our systems, that would significantly impact our ability to deliver. So the inconvenience and effort that we have to go to keep this issue at the forefront of our mind is well worth it, and I really do actually appreciate the work that Owen is leading on behalf of our team, although from a user point of view, you sort of grumble. That's the natural response. It is actually very much in our best interest that this is occurring, and I'm pleased to see the results and the continuing work in this space.
Thank you. Councillor Maynard.
Hi, Owen. I just wanted to just draw attention to something that really stood out to me in your report. I guess it's on page 84 for us and page 3 of yours. That 4.3, the SAM for compliance progress. And I just really want to give a really big shout out to you for that outstanding result. We've improved or held our own on every single measure, and we've basically blown away the benchmark scores on every measure. And that is a testament to the amazing work that you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you. To be fair, that was based upon some work that that was carried out by my predecessor as well, but we have continued to improve upon that as well as we progress through.
That's why you're the best in the business here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? All right. Could we have a mover of Councillor Williams will move the recommendation, and Councillor Ward will second. Councillor Williams?
No, I think it's a good report, and what Councillor Mailing was saying on 4.3, that's good progress.
Thank you.
Councillor Ward? Any further comment, Mr Mayor?
Just briefly, I totally endorse what the CEO said before, and look, there was a lack of questions because we actually had a fairly good discussion on this in workshop last week. So thank you very much, Owen, for the work you've done. It's mentioned as well your predecessor in this role. He certainly had some interesting presentations he did with us and various things to heighten its awareness, because as many have mentioned, we see it and we go, oh dear. But it's actually incredibly important. So I know that you're looking to work with us as elected members more to make sure that there's compliance. And I do encourage all my colleagues to make sure that we do take up that. It is important. As Jim's well mentioned, ransomware and other things are out there. Gosh, I get lots of phishing emails most days from various sources, including one that went from me encouraging you all to buy iTunes cards, apparently. So, and a lot of you called me back to see how many you wanted me to buy. No. But anyway, it's really important that we're in this space. So thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. It's been moved and seconded. Then I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you, Owen. Right, we've had a request to advance the consideration of Enterprise North Canterbury, so these poor people don't have to sit around for another hour before we discuss it. So I'm proposing that we with your indulgence, councillors, that we move to item 5.6 and invite Enterprise North Canterbury to the table to talk through the statement of intent. Thank you. And that is pages 134 to 163 on your agenda. All right. Now, who's going to lead us off here? Simon?
I'll just hand over to Heather, because the key item for your consideration is the draft promotions plan. The other two items are more, you'll be familiar with them, they're there for receipt. So without further ado.
Thank you. Heather.
Thank you and welcome. Sorry, it's lovely to be here and see you all today, and you've got a lot on your plate, so we'll try and keep this brief as well. Each year we present the district promotion plan to the board, and I presented it in May, and they approved it, but of course it comes to this forum for final approval and sign-off. It's a contract that we've had with the Waimakariri District Council since 2005, and it covers 4 key areas, one around district promotion, visitor attraction, event promotion, and running the ice site. So they're the 4 key areas in the business plan. With the COVID, we tended, and we have incorporated it in our E&C business plan and along this one as well, saying that we are first in response mode. and in recover mode and repositioning mode. The response, we're still reaching out to businesses as they're reaching out to us. So the ENC business support team has worked with over 657 businesses in the last 4 months. Talk about fatigue. So we've had to put all of our focus on business support. So Janine worked with those in the visitor industry, Alyssa worked with those in the food and beverage industry, and Miles, Guy and Tanya took over the rest, and we had Mel and Kaikoura. So for those 657 businesses that reached out to us, we think that's going to continue. The government just announced another $40 million, excuse me, that will go towards business recoveries. So we know that there is still uncertain times ahead. The recover part of this business plan for the promotion of the district is around the cycle trails and itineraries to the domestic market, but it's also around the business attraction side and business promotion side of things, where Miles has been absolutely inundated with business startup requests for support. So a lot of people are looking at a change of direction, either through redundancy or just wanting to start a business. So we've had more interactions over the last 3 months looking for people looking to start a business than in the last year. The repositioning is what you're going to be hearing from Vanessa shortly, and that is the visitor strategy. It was from 2010 to 2015, so that has now expired. So it gives us another chance to refocus on what's the future 5 years in the visitor attraction role. Just with regard to business promotion, we are still looking to target investment in the region. That's one of, we work with developers and we act as first point of contact for all new business inquiries, whether it be a startup, a business relocation. But the ones that we are prominently working to develop investment in the region with still is the water park. An observatory may not be Oxford now, but there's certainly talk of an observatory. And we've still got our application into the Crown Infrastructure Fund for the Wheels to Waipara project. We're also with the food and beverage project, which only started in the middle of COVID, the 1st of April. We're getting a lot of uptake for the food and beverage producers of North Canterbury. We've got a new brand, it's called Made North Canterbury, and that's been funded by the government with support from the council funding as well. And there's a lot of interest in a Makers Trail for North Canterbury as well. So the visitor attraction program, and I've got Janine here if there's any questions, is around our cycle preparedness. We know that the cycle lane over the motorway bridge is going to open end of December, early January, and we want to be ready for that, and that's connecting the existing cycle lanes in our district. So this isn't the Wheels to Waipara, this is our own district here in the Waimakariri, and getting signage and working in partnership with the key stakeholders being ECAN Council and the Tuhaitara Trust on the park. So we're then going to develop a cycleway campaign when that's ready, and we know that there's a reference group about to meet soon, a cycle and around the cycle and walking strategy. Our domestic marketing that we've signed off in this particular promotion plan is around supporting Kaiapoi's destination Kaiapoi jingle and getting people on board with that. That was their initiative, but ENC's been very much a supporter in assisting them with that. And our itineraries in further development will continue to operate the eyesight. The 2 eyesights in Christchurch have been put into hibernation, the one at Christchurch City and at the airport. So we're getting a lot of business from the lack of information services in Christchurch. People are actually driving out to Kaiapoi as well. Plus there's no booking agent, there's no travel agent in Kaiapoi either now, no place to book a bus or book a train or book anything except at the eyesight. So we actually busy again. The events promotion continues to be really successful with Lucy as well. She's got our events fund calendar on over 27 local Facebook pages and Christchurch Facebook pages. So, you know, we're using the social media channels, and that continues to be a focus for us. We have 48,000 in our budget for event funding this year, and I think there's going to be a strong uptake this year, and we want to keep investing in and growing new and existing events that council fund that, and we administer it. And yeah, if there are any questions to the promotion plan put to the council this year, I'd be happy, and or Janine, to take those questions.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Barlow.
Just one question on the overall district promotion strategy. Not everybody cycles. And when Kaipoi did the research on brands who spend money in our district, a lot of it was the older couple without children who drive. So I just wondered, what are you doing in that space in terms of craft, art, museums, shopping, hospitality, cafe, restaurants, particularly like a day trip to Oxford or those sort of areas, because that to me seems like a market that has money, they spend money, they have disposable income, and we should attract them more from Christchurch, which is our main market.
Yeah, very good question. I'm working on itineraries as well. So at the moment I'm going out and visiting the businesses. I want to hear what their stories are, what they're doing, what they're wanting to get out of this, and also seeing where the natural connections are to create some really good itineraries for people so they don't have to think about it, it's just done there for them. So in the first instance it will be suggested itineraries, and then we'll move it on to looking at commissionable itineraries as well. Yeah, so yeah, definitely the cars. I mean, we had a wee giggle over COVID and we called them bubble car trips, but people envision bubble cars, so yeah, we'll move away from that, yeah.
Did you want to speak, Mr. Markham?
Oh, look, just very briefly, I'm certainly not trying to cut off the question and answer, but we're going to spend the thick end of 5 hours on this topic tomorrow in terms of the visitor strategy. So just may I ask you to just hold your questions about the bigger, wider picture, because there'll be plenty of time tomorrow to explore that in a lot more detail, and I say that only in recognising that you've still got quite a big agenda before you.
Thank you. Councillor Ward?
Just a question. What is happening and how are we resolving connecting the cycleways over the main highways, i.e. Pegasus, Wood End?
I think that's a question for the council. Yeah, it's all about roadways. When it comes to roads, it's out of... So where I sit and I nag, and I just keep on showing where the cycleways are, and I have a nice little map here that shows all... Yes, I will. Thank you. All the gaps. So it's all done there, and it's just a matter of really working when this reference group comes together and discussing all those gaps. But I'll pass you around these maps.
Yes, I think, Councillor, it's top of the agenda for when the cycle reference group, the massive group that it is, actually comes together. And I've asked Joey McBride when is it going to have its first meeting, and I'm just waiting for a reply. Councillor Atkinson, and then Councillor Redmond, and then Councillor...
At the risk of breaching Simon's rules, I won't be there tomorrow, so... I do have a question. Well, I've met with, both Dan and I had a chance meeting with the Motorhome Association in Wellington last week, and the major question that he raised for us is, of course, now with events, and certainly within New Zealand, they look for parking spaces to be able to go to events and park their motorhomes up there. The big problem that they are having is actually getting the information out of districts of where these events are held. Do we supply the Motorhome Association with events in which they could attend? My understanding is we don't, but...
Yeah, no, me, yep. So no, we don't at the moment, but Gwen at the eyesight is always talking with the council to provide something that's really comprehensive for that, exactly that reason, for people. So, yeah.
But we can certainly start sending the events calendar to the Motorhome
Oh,
Association.
yes. Oh, sorry, that end,
Yeah,
sorry,
we
apologies.
can definitely start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ridman?
I'll just borrow this, Councillor.
All right, we'll get to you. Yes.
Just to respond to Councillor Ward's comment, the Wood End Residents Association presented at the Kaiapoi Tuahiwi Board last night, and also the Wood End Sefton Community Board the week before, on a proposed, or their proposal for a cycleway between Wood End and Kaiapoi using a paper road away from the main highway. So I don't know, have you had any contact from them regarding that proposal?
No, but I definitely know that they would like that, and that actually came up last night at a meeting we were at, that people would like to be able to cycle from Pegasus or the roundabout down through Wood End to Kaiapoi, because that would then actually complete the Passchendaele and the Wood End Path loop. But there needs to be more awareness that people actually can then cycle actually from the Pegasus roundabout out to Pegasus Bay and get onto that Tuhaitara coastal track to come safely into Kaiapoi via. It's a bit further, obviously, down the coastal track, but to make that a better ride and clearer, we can actually use that as step one rather than build a cycle lane down the motorway or beside the motorway. So there is actually a cycle lane that people can use to get from Pegasus roundabout to Kaiapoi, but it's not well mapped out.
I think obviously
Be a
on
lot
the
safer
agenda
too.
of this group when it meets is just
Looking at
connections
those
and covers.
options, agreed.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, if it's a commuter cyclist, they're not going to want to go out there, and the commuter cyclist was the best option, or the option that the council chose from the bridge to Kaiapoi, which is straight past Hellers, so it would be the same as going Kaiapoi to Wood End in the same manner, where it goes alongside the road and uses the, whereas our whole promotion is around the recreational, safe family walking and cycling routes, preferably.
On another topic altogether, going back to your response function, I know you guys have been really flat out working with businesses in that since the COVID issue has raised its head. But I was just curious, have you had much to do or much interaction with businesses in Oxford or in and around there?
I just went out to visit them a couple of weeks ago because I felt that we've been very reactive and entrenched. So as the Chief Executive, it's actually nice to go out and go and meet them face to face. Are they happy with our service? Have they any other requirements or needs? So yes, I did visit 10 businesses in Oxford, obviously the supermarket, NZ Ulu, my favourite shop Emma's, Jan's, which is just newly set up, the chemist, Cafe 51. Yeah, I went pretty much door to door, the Sheffield pie shop, and they're actually all in very good heart.
Excellent.
I might
Great
like to report.
Thank you.
I also went to Cheviot and did the same thing up there. And they're actually doing very well as well, but they're very unfortunate where 2 of their cafes have closed down. So 2 Rivers is closed and the Paddocks is for sale. So it's closed. So the Cheviot Tea Rooms is doing a booming business right now.
Thank you. Did you want to comment, Simon?
I just wanted to highlight if there are questions concluded on Heather's report. I just wanted to highlight for a flag for later discussion an element of my report, section 5.2, and it's the results of customer satisfaction survey 2019 versus 2016. And we've seen a decline, and it's a significant decline in satisfaction with encouraging business activity in the district and
Thank you. I do have a question myself, which is on, as you recall, the last Audit and Risk Committee in March, there was quite extensive talk about combining market view data and crafting some performance indicators, and I was very keen that it go into the statement of intent for ENC. I note that there isn't anything here, but you've got a briefing, Simon, later in the meeting. Can you clarify, and that is talking about the data I'm interested in bringing into an SOI. So can you clarify exactly where we are with that? Is it intended that this is reported separately and we tick off ENC? Yes, so the market view data, well, I'm not going to leap ahead with the briefing, but you're going to bring the market view data and whatever data that ENC is collecting on post-COVID or response and recovery and that sort of stuff. How is that going to come to the audit and risk in the future?
So in the briefing, it's scheduled for the end of this meeting.
Yes, this is the subject.
And then you might want to consider how frequently and at what volume what they can report it. But that is obviously monitoring information, how performance is procurement, how performance is tracking, how spending is going. That has a lot of influences on it. And also going forward, a huge amount of uncertainty on the COVID story and how that unfolds.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from councillors? In the interest of, can I have a mover? Councillor Ward will move. The Mayor will second the recommendations. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Heather, for a great report. I've had quite a bit of working with you over the last few months and your team, and I know that you work under really confined budgets, but you do an amazing job for us in the district, and I want to say thank you to you and your team, and let you know that you have our total support in anything you want to do. You're doing a great job under a difficult situation, and thank you to everybody for doing a super job.
Thank you.
Endorse those comments. It speaks for itself in the report. Thank you, Heather and the team. I'm fortunate to sit on the board of ENC, so I know exactly what goes on in the operation and how hard the organisation works. Look, over the time, responding and connecting with businesses through COVID and your continuing connection there, over 700 businesses as I understand. It was very impressive, and I know that it's been very valued by those businesses that they've reached out and in some instances provided cash flow advice where they've needed or other advice. And just connecting with them, actually, I had a number that contacted me and I put them in touch with you, and I know that they appreciated that follow-up. I also appreciate the work that you do in following up very direct matters. Like I know there was a matter a couple of weeks ago. It's been circulating around a potential vape store in Rangiora, and I appreciate it that you met with me and the building owner, and I know there's been others that have also followed that up as well. I spoke with the potential new tenant on Sunday, who was delighted with the assistance and encouragement they'd had. I know Councillor Ward had also been very active in her encouragement to them, and my understanding is they're now going to sign that lease. That's a very real matter in our town, in our towns, where encouraging businesses to be here, but the right sort of businesses. I've got nothing against people that vape, absolutely nothing, but not in that location when we've spent so much money and investment there. And we're also attracting people out here that are coming out here, the Mirabelle shoppers and other shoppers that are coming out to Kaiapoi, to Rangiora, to Oxford, because they like that shopping experience that they get, that boutique store. So protecting that's really important. So we can't directly control that, but we can give every encouragement. So Heather, I appreciate the work that you and your team have done in that space and thoroughly endorse the recommendation.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? No? Councillor Mood, any additions? No. All right. We'll put the recommendations as outlined on page, whatever it is, 134. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you very much, ENC and Simon. And we'll obviously be in touch to see you again tomorrow. Thank you. So we went back to the sustainability strategy on page, what page is that on here? 95 on your diligent, but in fact it's only kidding you. Oh no, it is here 95 on this this running sheet. So welcome Mike to the table to take us through the third quarter report, and over to you. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Okay, I won't be too long with this, I don't think. But it's just really to say this is the third of 4 quarterly reports on the sustainability strategy implementation process. And just noting in our recommendations that we've added something from last time, and this is some work that Simon Markham is addressing around the standard report template being updated and to include reference to sustainability considerations. So that's a work in progress. Just a couple of other things I'd like to say too, that we have been working on a number of issues around on the site. COVID-19 hasn't helped, but we've certainly got in place the organics landfill recyclable bins in place, ready to go when such time is ready. And also the earthquake repairs here too hasn't helped. Certainly with the kitchens first, and then we'll look at the wider organisation. And just to note too that item there, 4.6, back in early July, the council meeting, we did appoint at least the 2 councillor members of the steering group for the sustainability strategy. And so that's a key part of where we're going to in the stage 2 of the strategy. So that's the thing that we're overlapping here. We're talking about what we've done and we're talking about what we're doing, but there's sort of a necessary overlap there. Just briefly, I'd like to sort of add something sort of practical here, that what Ashley and the AIM team has provided me with some data to show that, you know, like back in October, December, the first quarter, we were spending something like $52,000 per quarter on fuel. That dropped to $28,000 in the COVID period. Sort of that's April to June. So that's it just shows what can happen. And we sort of still, business was able to progress without so many cars being used. So it's just an interesting sort of observation anyway, that we used a lot less fuel. Whether we'll be able to maintain that, I'm not sure. And just, that's pretty well it. I take it everyone's managed to have a look at the report, and just happy to take any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Barnett?
Just quickly, Mike, thank you for the very, very good report, but I just wondered, with some of the items you've got action complete when it's actually been moved to another department, perhaps that should be just stated moved on rather than complete. For example, the council-wide opportunities developing an urban and rural forestry strategy. That says action complete, but it's not. It's just been moved to another department.
Okay, yes, I see what you mean. Yeah. As it's stated there, it possibly has completed, but it's moved to it and it's changed. It's morphed into something else a little bit too. So, and that's certainly going to be something that's going to be picked up at more so in the next strategy.
Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Redmond?
I just endorse what Councillor Barnett has said, I noticed some of the refurbishment issues with this building are down as complete because that project is on hold at the moment, where it's not really completed, it's just in abeyance.
Okay, any more? Yes, thank you. Any more questions before we move? No? You'll move it? No. Yes, thank you. Councillor Barnett is moved.
Just very quickly, it's an excellent report, Mike. Thank you very, very much for this. I understand you've had a major disruption with the COVID-19, and so therefore it will be good now that the steering group is established that you can move forward and refine this to turn it into more of an action plan, and we can see some things on the ground. I'm desperate to put my tea bag somewhere other than the rubbish in the kitchen, so I look forward to seeing some of these smaller action plans actually going forward. Thank you.
Take it home and put it on your garden, councillor. No? Any other comments, councillors? No? All right. We'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you very much. And the next one is the visitor strategy, pages 104 to 133. And welcome Vanessa and Simon. If you want to rip through this, that'll be good.
Hi everyone, I'll take my report as read. A couple of quick points. This strategy is just for 5 years through to 2025. ENC are providing the 15k budget for it out of an overflow or surplus from their 2018-19 events budget line. We're looking at just limited community engagement on 22 July and August 24, as opposed to going out for full public consultation, given the relatively niche nature of this strategy and the fact that we sort of need to manage expectations around what we can deliver on, being that we're low in resourcing for this for the next 5 years and likely budget as well. And it's primarily targeting efforts, ENCs, towards marketing in the future and councils in terms of public realm investments, anything that we may decide to enhance to basically make that visitor experience much more attractive. I think that's the main point, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, councillors? No? You'll move it? Secondly, right. Councillor Barnett moves and Councillor Ward seconds. Councillor Barnett?
Yes, just thoroughly endorse this approach. We have to do this. Everything has changed and we're going to have to look at this through a completely fresh lens. So I hope that the exercises we're doing going forward will actually be open to the fact that we almost have to start at the drawing board. Our visitors are going to be completely different. They're going to demand a different experience because of the loss of all the international visitors. And we are going to be competing with a lot of people who have much higher budgets than us. So I look forward to reviewing this budget with you.
Councillor Ward?
I look forward to working with you because it's going to be really positive out there and we're going to really nail it. So looking forward to the next wee while working on things.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually endorse this too. I think that it is something, I think starting from the absolute beginning would be an absolute mistake. The other thing is that we've always had a high number of day visitors in our district. We don't rely on international visitors. That's where our focus should be, and it's always been, to my view, and should actually be in the next 5 years because the international ones probably won't be there. In saying that, we also need to be ready that within 2 or 3 years, if indeed things do clear up out there, we might have a lot less population to be able to move around, but if it does clear up there in the next 2 or 3 years, we need to be nimble enough to move on that. And our district is growing into something that is internationally attractive to people, the wide open spaces and the areas in which we have. So I want to see that it continues to focus on that day market that we have, as we have always done, and as is being reported in just about every media story that there is at the moment, the shop local, and in fact what retail's doing. In the first week after COVID returned, 58% of people shopping locally actually put people up 12% turnover in retail. That is massive. Now, we already concentrate on that. I don't want to see too much change in this, to be honest, because we already do that. It's how we bolster it and make it happen better. So it's not actually about a change of culture. That's what we do. We just need to make it better and try and concentrate more on what we're doing rather than try and reinvent the wheel.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just write a reply.
Yep.
My comments related to the fact that New Zealanders have to travel in New Zealand, and that's a completely different scenario from what we've been facing in previous years, where a lot of those people would spend that money overseas. So therefore, we have that opportunity to grab that market if we do this right. So therefore, I think we are going to have to keep our minds open as to ways we can actually get some leverage of New Zealanders travelling in New Zealand, bearing in mind we're also going into what looks like a global economic crisis. So I think we're going to have to be smarter than we have in the past, build on what we've got, but have an open mind about new opportunities, and I hope this council will be progressive in that space.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? No, we'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you very much. Now we've done item 5.6. We'll move on to item 6, which is the portfolio updates, and Councillor Ward with your audit risk long-term plan and excellent program.
Thank you. With the audit and risk we live streamed in May, we've been looking at the civic precinct fit out, plans and design. That's coming along. Lighting, town centre feature lighting, we've had two people submit ideas. We've got a third one coming this week, so then we'll be able to make an assessment on who we might take along with us to design our future town centre lighting. Attended the WaiMac Jobs Summit, Town Centre Strategy, Kaipoi Mixed Use Business yesterday. With the Excellence Program, we're all striving every day for excellence, and we've been rewarded with our AA rating, which is amazing. The long-term plan, we're just starting on that now that we've done the annual plan, and we're moving on that. Challenges, of course, with the conditions of the present civic precinct building and the fact that staff are now in 12 different buildings is not cohesive and is quite disruptive. It needs urgent action, and I'm asking you all to think about this very carefully, to bring forward plans and erect a new one-stop precinct building next to an enlarged library. The risk here is for staff retention and health, which we were talking about before, and fatigue, and that they have the right in a modern, efficient, healthy working environment. The present situation is very challenging for all. I urge your support to bring forward in a long-term plan the build of the library and the civic precinct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't think we're going to perhaps decide on that right now, but thank you. Thank you for the encouragement and putting it front and centre. Thank you. Any questions of Councillor Ward? Yes, Councillor?
Just a little one. You were talking about the lighting plans. For where? No, lighting.
Oh, we have a committee that is looking at the lighting town centres for Kaipoi and Ringiora. Right. And we've had two people present their thoughts, and we're having a third person on Thursday. Our concept plans, and then we will choose. We've only got a budget, I think, to advise us and to do some plans for a lighting strategy for the two towns moving forward.
So is that like as in a decorative type thing, or is it just
I think
safety
it's decorative. It's enhancing the buildings, enhancing the towns, and making the towns feel really special, so that people feel really good about being in that space and feel good about staying in that space and spending their money.
Because I was going to say I know the lights are quite expensive items, but just the fairy lights on the trees at night in Rangiora and the lights in Kaiapoi, especially like whenever you're sitting there by the water, they're just beautiful. And they really do enhance the feel of both places. So yeah, it's good to
So I
see
think
something like that being looked at.
It'll come to either LTP
Yeah.
or
Cool.
future
Just-
ones.
just wanted to ask the
This
question.
recommendation goes forward.
Okay, you can go on with your meeting now.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett, Communications and Customer Service. Thank you.
Yes, and Emma, just note I've emailed this to you, dot points, to help you with the minutes. Communications, because we didn't have an audit meeting, this is reporting from the first quarter, which is January to March 2020. There were 8 communication plans written, 53 media inquiries and 58 news stories, plus 5 public consultations. Our website had over 106,000 users, independent users. The key topics of interest were the curbside recycling that has a big impact on communications customer service area, and also the rates latterly, which was probably COVID related with it hit the end of March. Facebook has over 73,000 users who viewed our posts, and video views are up over 100%. More recently in communications, they've been very busy with the Rangiora Service Centre communications, and also have worked on the AA LGP Council rating release, as the Mayor mentioned. We've also just rolled out an e-news newsletter, so I encourage you to let everybody know and encourage them to sign up. In customer services recently, they're very busy with dog registrations, which you can now do online. There's a few little gremlins in the system, but you can actually register your dog online if that's all you need to do. That's brilliant. The 1 July rates demand has just hit letterboxes, so the phone calls have started to be very busy in customer services. And they're also very busy with rate rebate appointments at the moment. The service request responsiveness group are meeting again this week, and there'll be an update on that soon. And customer services have also assisted with the cemetery strategy, which is almost ready and hopefully coming to council in August.
Thank you. Any questions of Councillor Barnett? No, thank you. We now move on to